Hi everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Assets, where comics, cards, and collectibles are just as much a store of value, similar to stocks, bonds, and bitcoins, just more fun. Here's a look at some recent comic book news for New Comic Book Day, July 15th, 2020. First off, Batman is continuing with 101. James Tynion IV is continuing, instead of it rebooting with number 1 for the 5G storyline, since those are no longer going to take over. They're going to get moved to DC Black Label, I believe, just as their own sort of self-contained universe, just because they already have so much storyline already worked out for that. Instead, what we're going to be getting for Batman is Wildcats return. Well, mostly Grifter. I'm not sure if it's going to be any of the other Wildcats ensemble, but we do have Grifter coming back. We'll see how that goes. We haven't really seen him since the new 21, or sorry, the new 52. Here's some of the art for some of the covers. In terms of Grifter, they're pretty good about using him and just plucking him into just other storylines here and there. You probably remember Flashpoint being one of those. So, it's not his first time running in with Batman, so we'll see what exactly he has to do with Lucius Fox and how that storyline is going to play out. But they are going to be continuing these cool 1 in 25 variant covers, the design covers by Jimenez, continuing on from the rest of these. They started back on 92. And they've been working their way through up until 99. We're not sure if they're going to have one for 100 or not. An image hasn't been released for that. But they are going to continue it on 101 with Grifter. I am going to be collecting all these just because, personally, I just like the design covers. I have the Crush cover from Teen Titans 20, the 125 with the Crush's first appearance. That usually is still even 9.8s going around like 180 to the 220. And Crush hasn't been seen any sort of hype really. There are 3 first appearances in that issue, so that is a good key issue for Teen Titans. We do have this 1 in 25 Clown Hunter, so this is going to be potentially his similar book that could rival Crush. Already we are seeing 9.8s of Punchlines 1 in 25 going for similar numbers around $180-$200. So picking up any of these and slabbing it might just be worth it for the resale. You might be able to double your money in terms of what you put into it, or more, depending on shipping and how many books you're sending to get graded and all the other costs and what you want to do with that. But overall, these are just great covers, especially for the variant market. Especially if this story does blow up, if Joker War does turn huge, then some of these covers, if not the whole collection, will definitely be worth something. So that's something to look out for. Alright, moving on, we got Alex Ross. He has a small documentary coming out next week for the Comic-Con at Home. He's definitely one of the most prominent artists still working in the comic book industry right now. Many people have definitely seen his work, even if they don't know his name. They've definitely seen at some point in their lives some amount of his work. He's just definitely a very good artist, and he even seems more like a modern artist in terms of like the actual art scene right now, similar to how Shepard Fairey or any of the other modern artists that we have in the contemporary scene. They'll release limited print runs, do sign print runs, release them on their websites, constant engagement with the fans. A lot of these pieces, when you pick them up, they do appreciate over time, just because what he does is a lot of limited work, a lot of signed things that aren't going to get re-signed. So when you get them, the scarcity's there, the value's there, the name's there. and his work tends to appreciate over time. So that is definitely something that you might want to get into, because he has stuff like this on his website for sale a lot of the time, and it goes and sells out really fast. Especially some of the sign work and the Immortal Hulk stuff, definitely very popular right now. All right, and then so a little bit of good news coming out of 2019. Definitely we were hoping this year would be a little bit better than last year. But it's definitely last year's better than 2018 apparently. Overall, an 11% growth in sales. A lot of that weight is being carried by the graphic novel sales, which definitely DC pretty much is always the mainstay, always ahead of the curve when it comes to graphic novels and collected works, especially when it comes to Black Label. Those just storylines where they get writers and artists to just focus on telling one coherent story, no needing to drag things out or have to pay mind to any of the other writers within the continuity. So definitely I can see why the graphic nails did boom so much in 2019 with how much Black Label they pushed. I do imagine Marvel probably had the supremacy though when it comes to floppy issues, especially with their events being just way more popular last year, with Absolute Carnage, and it wasn't more so event, but like House of X Powers of 10. Definitely, I've never seen such a reinvigoration in like going to the comic book store week after week and seeing those lines like just pile up before the stores open. Definitely House of X and Powers of 10 had a huge impact on that, and I imagine Marvel just always leads when it comes to the floppies. Alright, moving on to what I'm looking forward to reading this week. We have Death Metal 2 coming off of Death Metal 1, with just the insane start of this story. We had Bat Mage, the Bat T-Rex, Burnt Up Swamp Thing, just so much fun stuff, and then leaving it off on Wonder Woman just eviscerating the Batman Who Laughs, and then looking into them releasing like a Dr. Manhattan Who Laughs, like insane things, like major huge stuff that Scott Snyder's doing. I can't believe they actually let him do so much of this stuff, and I can't wait for the rest of this ride. Same for Avengers 34. Now I just started picking up the Avengers run on 33 because of the insane Moon Knight entrance. I wasn't that interested in the Avengers for this run before that issue. It just didn't seem that interesting. It seemed pretty lackluster. From what I've heard, the writing wasn't all there for most of the Avengers run up until this point. But getting into this Moon Knight stuff in Khonshu, definitely looking forward to this next issue and seeing where that goes. Alright, and then last but not least, Venom 26. Donny Cates' goodness. We've already had such a great run of Venom, and we can't wait for this first appearance of Virus. The first full appearance of Virus, definitely coming off of Venom Island. Can't wait to see where this goes next, especially now that we know that we're getting the Null event at the end of the year, starting in December. So I don't know anyone who doesn't have Venom on their pull list right now. If you're not reading Venom, read Venom. Read Venom. And now for the 3 books I'm specking on next week. Not too much actually comes out next week in terms of key issues, so these are just going to be 3 straight up variants, in terms of more or less probably growing in price over time. The Batman 95 1 and 25 variant, I talked about this earlier in the video. Definitely these are just awesome covers. Jimenez is a great artist. The Crush cover, has maintained value. I think these will probably maintain value if the Joker War storyline keeps going like strong. I mean, even the preludes have been really strong. If this is like the premiered a Joker event that we're gonna look back to for like the next like 5 or so years, this is probably gonna be like a really good collection to have in terms of the variants. Obviously you're gonna want to try to sell them and flip them like when you can, but I think getting all of them and grading them will be worth it. All right, moving on. Second pick is second issue, Win number 2 variant by Peach Momoko. Peach Momoko, huge this year. If you watch Comic Tom, you're the Peach. What up? Definitely. I think that Peach Momoko will continue to make headways throughout the industry. She's already been blowing up, and she's such a newcomer to the scene. It's insane. Peach did get commissioned to do a lot of covers for Boom, for Scout, and she's going to be doing these variants for all of the Wind issues, and they all look very much like a collection. They all have the very same sort of like purpley, darkish sky kind of background with the character feature in the middle. I imagine that all of these will stay along those lines, and that it'll look like this 5-piece collection by the end of the run, and it'll probably be amazing to have in full, especially if you are able to get them all signed by her. If Wind ends up getting optioned for something that will help it very much so in terms of price. If Wind does get optioned, these Peach Momoko covers will just blow up, especially if something is killing the children. That was something that was being looked at as a TV option. More than likely that will probably come to Netflix at some point. Wind, same writer, can definitely potentially also do it later on. There's not too much hype about Wind right now as a story. It was originally supposed to just be a graphic novel, so the way it's coming out in these single floppies, it just doesn't have like the same sort of pacing as those single issue comics week to week would. So not a lot of people are head over heels with the first issue. Applicable in other forms of media that can definitely bold very well, especially since something is killing the children already, could potentially get there. And last one is Power Rangers Ranger Slayer number 1, the Montez Foil variant. Just throwing this up there just because it's the foil variant that goes along with the other Power Rangers ones. Definitely the fact that it's the Pink Ranger is one of the more sort of, I guess, fan favorited of the Rangers, along there with white, green, pink. Definitely of the Rangers is something that's up there. And then the fact that it's just a number 1 issue, might as well just give it a shot. I know it's not going to be like the true origin, since they actually have a free comic book day issue that's coming out this week, that will set this up. So there's not going to be too many things that this number 1 is actually going to introduce that the free comic book wouldn't already have. But either way, this variant cover is probably just going to be sought after for just to add to the rest of the people's collection, or for the people who like the Pink Ranger specifically. All of these covers are the ratioed variants, so that's why they will more than likely go up in price, just because out of all of the ratioed variants that are coming out next week, these are the 3 that I feel are probably going to go up in price over time. And there's not too many actual issues that are interesting or key issues next week. So this is pretty much what we have. But definitely appreciate the listen and the watch, guys. Make sure to do all that awesome YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and catch you next time.